a lot of this, by the way, was Michael Semblis being misinterpreted, even by me, about selling NVIDIA on this. It's really the hyperscalers that may be too aggressive. That's maybe these companies, except for Apple, are spending too much.
You're referring to the strategist at J.P. Morgan. I know he wrote a piece that was last week.
It was devastating in some ways because it questioned. And it said the emperor had few clothes.
It was questioning this thesis that I brought up at the very top of the show. Again,
yes. I want to circle back.
Will we get it? Well, listen. As our viewers know, we come back to the same themes time and again, as we need to.
Well, because
these are the important themes in the marketplace.
Yes.
Generative AI, obviously, and what the applications will be, but this idea that has been around now for some time, since that guy from Sequoia really wrote that notes. Quite a while ago.
Great note.
Just saying this is the number that I'm coming up with, and this is what you would need to see in terms of actually having a return that made sense for this number.
But, look, this morning I meet with Jeff Martha. He's the great CEO. I say that because it's their 75th birthday, Medtronic. They're ringing the opening bell. And one of the things that Jeff said that I think is really significant, he talked about colonoscopies.
Right.
And he said that they have an AI version and they have a regular version. And the regular version is missing 50%, 50, of the cancerous polyps that are discovered by their AI version in Medtronic. We keep getting these somewhat one-off examples. The other week we saw a science study, Nature, science study talking about, wait a second, maybe we're mapping out all the ways that cancer could be caused. So, David, maybe we just don't have enough use. Look, I think Jensen Wong, if you were here, would say, guys, we've had this, since Sequoia did that note?
No, but
he wouldn't say that.
I mean, there's no one we talk to, and obviously I know, we both talk to each other occasionally off this set.
Yes, we do.
Who doesn't say this is going to change the world? They all say the same thing.
Right. I do think that
all the CEOs. I mean, I haven't yet met one. However, how long it takes and what form, and who the beneficiaries ultimately are. I mean, again, so many do come back to things like not just what you discussed with colonoscopies and Medtronic, but drug discovery and how you'll be able to shrink the time for a new drug substantially, and what that will mean. At the same time, though, Jim, until we start to see these consumer applications, our investors sort of going to be in a wait-and-see mode now.
Worse. No one seems to believe in the consumer AI PC as much as we thought, and the consumer doesn't seem to get the value proposition of AI. Now, something why not? I mean, I can put in ChatGPT. I don't really need.
Right. You don't need the
AI.
PC to do it yourself.
No, I've got AI. Do you want to go back to the idea that we have to worry about AI since everybody else is? And the reason I say it, David, is because is there a level where people feel confident in not selling NVIDIA? Did we reach it today? NVIDIA was down big last week. People are saying the chart is okay. But, David, NVIDIA is still the Verdun, the Somme. It's the Somme. That's S-O-M-M-E.
That's World War I, right? You're talking?
Yeah, I switch wars all the time.
I know you do.
It's the Khe-Sanh.
You go back
really
and
want to
forth
get more
between
pertinent.
your wars. NVIDIA is up 3.5%.
Well, I'm saying, but can it hold it?
6%, of course.
It plays this game. Now, David, if you watch the volume, it trades like GameStop did. It's got a lot of 0-30 options.
Yeah, I know. The kids love playing zero-day options on NVIDIA.
They're going to say, Grandpa just said, and all I can say is, I wish I were Grandpa.
Yeah, they go between FanDuel and making their bets on the game tonight.
Well, why not? I mean, they have the over on NVIDIA.
Zero-day options on NVIDIA. So that makes you a complete anachronism.
Well,
you make no difference to anybody in any way.
It's a knockout pool.
And I don't know what it says for me because I just sit next to you.
David, I play daily fantasy every day here.
Oh, that's good.
And right now, I did not start NVIDIA. I started Richardson, Saquon Barkley, and Cooper Kupp. Can you believe how great I am? No, I didn't really do that. But, David, this is the reality, is that NVIDIA cannot finish up. It's the long knives are out for NVIDIA. And, by the way, also there's a sense that it doesn't matter whether you buy anything.
One day
Amazon.
The demand will
it should be now.
Will diminish for their chips.
Now, but the spokespeople.
At some point, the spending will slow. Right?
Well, we had a great number from Broadcom and Hawk Tan. People hated it. David was hated. And Hawk watches the show. Hawk, how you doing? He's an Eagle fan.
Yes.
Watches the show, and all I can say is, holy cow, where did people want to sell that? That was a super micro-like decline.
Okay.
Oh, never mind, nothing's like that.
Again, we need to point out the fact that the stock of Broadcom is still up 60% over the last 12 months.
Yeah, my charitable trust owns
Granted, it was in the, I think it was in the $800 billion, almost $800 billion market cap club for a while.
It wasn't, it was like Berkshire. They don't count the 800 and 900. They're like, no, they need, you know why? Because they haven't, when you go to DraftKings, they actually give you 200 billion. You can get it's called you get points.
Right.
You watch DraftKings for where stocks are going. Killer.
No idea what you're talking about.
Let's turn now to the chips, which are at the center of the AI craze. The SMH VanEck Semi ETF is off more than 20% from its recent highs. Do you call it a bear market? If we're still at the beginning of the AI boom, then why are the chips doing so, and what can get them going again? Seema Modi has those details. A lot of attention, Seema, lately about how utilities are outperforming the chips year to date.
Sort of diversifying the trade, right, Kelly? Yeah, it's the generative AI trade certainly losing momentum over the past 1 month. If you look at names like NVIDIA, AMD, Broadcom, these are the big players, right, that specialize in the software and hardware to power the hyperscalers with their AI models. You'll see those stocks are down about 22% or more from their respective highs. And then there's the AI server names like Supermicro, Dell, HP Enterprise, also under pressure, as are the high memory bandwidth names like Micron, which is down about 45% from its 52-week high. Mizuho's Jordan Klein writing to clients that buy-side interest in semiconductor stocks has soured as of late. Sentiment is not holding up, and that interest is growing in software stocks. Now, speaking of software, those names listed under the ticker IGV is holding up a lot better than chips over the past 2 months, driven in part by Adobe, which is set to report earnings later this week. You'll see shares have outperformed. The sell side, though, still very bullish on chip giant NVIDIA. Today, Morgan Stanley reiterating its overweight rating. Analyst Joseph Moore says gross margin concerns are overstated. He says the bigger risk is macro and the potential impact on capital spending. But to really get the Gen AI trade back in action, Goldman's technology team says the market needs clarity on 3 things: NVIDIA's 2026 financials, further evidence that AI models can be monetized, and that costs can be absorbed. Guys?
Yeah, I think it's obvious, sir. I mean, I don't know where you come down on this, that the excitement and all of the upside of, if you want to call it a bubble, whatever you want to call it this year, I mean, we are past that point now. And the only question is it just a sideways correction? Is there more to come for some of these more exposed names?
Completely. I mean, you've already discounted really good earnings for the next 2 to 3 years. And NVIDIA was very clear and said, look, the Blackwell chip needs to perform the way it's done. It's having issues in production. And then there's a demand. I mean, for years, the biggest thing that we have to always watch as investors for semiconductors is double ordering.
Exactly.
And it's did Meta and Apple and Google order too many?
Overorder, yeah.
Because just in case they wouldn't get what they needed. And then all of a sudden, when they all pull back together and say, oh, we don't really need these. And you read articles about the chips being in China and in the rest of the world. So yes, it's a phenomenal chip. And yes, we do own NVIDIA. But I do think you have to own it in size moderation. It has done everything we've asked it to do. Now it really needs to have that growth of the next leg. And maybe some of the capital that's come out. I mean, it's already down 20% of its peak.
I think it's down more than 30%.
30%. Yeah, it was like over 130. Well. I mean, 2022, the stock was down 50%.
Right.
So you have to hold these stocks in your portfolio, but it's part of a diversified portfolio, not the, hey, this is the stocks I've owned for the last 10 years.
I'm all in, putting all my chips on.
Yeah, and it's okay to own it. And that's the one thing that people say, well, you're saying not to own it. I'm not saying not to own it.
You own it.
Be prepared that the rest of the market could be up and you could be down significantly just because you've already had that built in already.
Absolutely.
All right, I hope you're all having a great start to the week. The S&P finished the day up about 1.1%, and NVIDIA finished the day up about 3.5%. I'm going to talk about the market and NVIDIA some more in just a moment, but very briefly, let me give a quick update on Tesla. I intend to follow through with what I said in the Tesla swing trade video that I posted last Monday. I intend to hold this position until either the event is delayed again, or until early October. So as long as the robotaxi event is not delayed again, then I intend to hold this position until sometime in early October. I think it is very possible that we could see momentum in Tesla stock again sometime between now and October 10th. It does concern me that we recently broke back below the 50 MA on the daily time frame, and we also did not get a daily close above this supply zone. So that is not ideal in the short term. If we get a substantial dip in Tesla sometime between now and October 10th, then I would likely add to this position and bring down my cost basis. I do think we are likely to see momentum return to Tesla at some point between now and the October 10th event, as long as the event is not delayed again, and as long as the rest of the market can simply remain calm. Speaking of the rest of the market, we do have a very clear gap on the SPY on the 30-minute time frame. The last time we had a gap like this on the SPY, the gap was not filled until 2 days later. Looking ahead this week, we have some important events. A presidential debate on Tuesday night, CPI on Wednesday, and then initial jobless claims and PPI on Thursday. So with a busy week ahead and a gap on the SPY, I think it is reasonable to be cautious moving forward this week. Now let's look at NVIDIA's chart. I am still watching to see if NVIDIA will trade lower toward historic support around $90 per share at some point in the coming days. A couple weeks ago, I told you we were trading underneath the 50 MA on the daily time frame, and I was looking for a retest of the support trend line that stretches back to January of this year. Then last Tuesday, we broke below that trend line, and I started telling you that I'm looking for a move toward $90 per share at some point in the future. I'm not saying this will happen immediately. It may be a number of days before we see this happen, and we could have some green days along the way. Ultimately, though, I'm looking for a move toward $90 per share. Also, I think it's very interesting that the 200-day moving average is so close to historic support on NVIDIA's chart right now. Please remember that I do not know what the future holds, and I could be completely wrong. With that in mind, I think that if NVIDIA were to dip to $90 per share or even lower into the 80s, then I think that would be a fantastic long-term buying opportunity in NVIDIA. NVIDIA's recent earnings were fine, and market participants were upset because it appears that NVIDIA's growth rate is slowing. And while the growth rate technically did slow this quarter, it all comes down to the delay in Blackwell. Blackwell is delayed by 3 months. NVIDIA expects roughly $3 billion in revenue from Blackwell in the first quarter it ships, and Blackwell is now scheduled to ship in Q4. So if Blackwell had not been delayed by 3 months, then NVIDIA would have guided Q3 revenue higher by $3 billion, and therefore the overall trend of NVIDIA's growth rate acceleration would have remained intact. This is important because it means we could potentially see NVIDIA's growth rate reaccelerate at some point in the future once Blackwell is shipping in volume. So again, I think NVIDIA at $90 per share or lower is a great long-term buying opportunity, as long as there are not any unexpected risks such as geopolitics regarding Taiwan. As long as nothing unexpected happens on that front, then I think $90 per share or lower would be a great long-term buying opportunity in NVIDIA. The hyperscalers like Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Google, and Tesla simply cannot afford to be late on AI, and they must invest in AI infrastructure now, or else they will be quickly outpaced by their competition. Demand for NVIDIA's products is still enormous and growing based on the hyperscalers' most recent earnings reports and earnings conference calls. And so, I am still bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.